Perfect. So yeah, welcome to Architects Edge Live. This is the second in the series, and this one in particular, as soon as I switch over to this, you guys can see everything, correct? Brian or Brock and everyone else? I see, I see hands and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, we see your desktop, Architects Edge Live.
Perfect. So this is our over 375 reasons to update, which is going to be slides plus demos, plus if Brock wants to show off cool stuff as well, which I'll defer to him being able to do that. But let's get kicked off and started into things. So this gives you a high level overview of all. I would say all of the things, but in reality, these are high level items, right? New console experience, improve this and that, centralized features, Skyline. This is when you look at it, it looks like, wow, that looks like 10 new features. I thought you said 375. I'm like, yeah, I totally said 375, and I gotta stop that one from sharing because it's still popping up in the background. All right. So, as a result of that, we're going to actually get into the real meat of what is in here. There we go. So, this part is number one. You guys may have seen this, especially if you're using 8.17 or prior, that things changed in 8.18. It was a new console experience. This new console experience is kind of like it's like this. It's got this overview pane that's got a bunch of information like that looks similar to where it was before. And while true, there are a number of new changes that went into there, right? The Aria Operations diagnostics, certificates, stuff like that, which we're going to dig deeper as we go a little deeper into the session itself, which kind of brings us this. This shows you at a high level of some of those pieces, but through the power of screen swapping, you guys can see this now, right? This is that new interface as I chase around to find my cursor. So rather than just looking at a screenshot of it, thank you for the thumbs up. I appreciate that. Now we're able to see, hey, what does this actually look like? What are some of the things in here? So we're able to, rather than have to dig into subsections, I can look at a high level view of the findings rather than click on diagnostics, which we'll look at in a little bit. I can see if I happen to have any configuration drifts or anything I may have configured. Some we'll discuss way later. If I happen to have any certificates out of compliance or ones that are expiring or are expired, it would show here. Fortunately, slash unfortunately, we're all active and good. I'd say slightly unfortunately because I like to show stuff that's janky and broken. We also see some of these things. Hey, what's the state of our workload operations? Where's an area I want to start to dig deeper into? And I can just, click right there to view capacity. Hey, what are any of these alerts? Okay, I've got a lot of alerts. A few of them are critical, but most of them are, immediate and warning, right? What's really nice about that is you have that today, home overview, and suddenly you're able to see all this kind of stuff, all that information at a glance. So swapping back, you guys can see this screen. um, this one is absolutely super exciting. This new global inventory pane. What I particularly like about the global inventory pane is one, it's got all this information at a glance, right? Number of accounts I have, number of vCenters, all this information in one place, number of virtual machines, because these are often things you would go and build a separate dashboard or some type of view or some way to view that information. Now it's like, hey, we put all that one place. But where that starts to dig a little deeper is now we've got this new tree view, right? So not only do we have inventory, instead of having it being a hidden menu, it's a, front and center piece right there. But we have this new tree view that you'll notice looks remarkably similar to the layout we have within vCenter. And I noticed that because it's remarkably similar to the way we have it in vCenter, which is exciting because we always had it different. And like, oh, this is the way I go through things normally. Oh, you need to learn a new way to do these things. That's kind of like what we had said. And we say that no more. And that was one of the new features in 8.18 is we made it simple, straightforward, and easy. Taking a little further, now I can kind of switch through. This actually is a kind of a combination of vCenter plus troubleshooting workbench in the way it provides different levels of visibility. So you can look at things through multi-different level scopes and start to dig into these things, look at stuff from a network standpoint and storage and so forth. It's just a lot of stuff that you're able to do right there. And we've got a number of these new visualization changes, right? So this part, I'm going to swap back over to do a little live screen view. So this is, if we're at the home page, right? We were just at home overview a moment ago, right? We're at the home overview, but something we'll talk about in a bit, but one of those new features is the ability to tag certain dashboards and actually put them right here on your home page. So one really nice thing about that happens to be is I've got troubleshooting V3 pinned here, right? That happens to be the dashboard I've got pinned here. You know, I've got V3, VM details 10, right sizing reclamation. But Brock recently released troubleshooting VMs V4. I'm like, I don't want that V3 thing anymore. I think he may have updated Chris or complained about something. So if I want to, I can simply have gone right into dashboards, you know, search for V4, find it, and I go click that little home icon. And suddenly, now I can go back over here, or I can go over here and just click home. And now, look at that. I've got V3 and V4, but I don't need that V3 thing anymore. So I just go and, do I want to remove that? Yeah, let's get rid of that. And now suddenly I've got the V4 right here available. That's a super, super cool thing that you just have there at your fingertips. Rather than like, oh, I love this V4 dashboard. How do I get there? Well, I go to expand operations, right? I click dashboards. I go over here and I would either scroll through this list, or I would do what I would typically do is I would search for V3 or V4, and it makes it easy for me to find. So it's just a really nice feature that is there. Yes, you can still favorite it. Yes, you can still access and make it recent, but that's something that's right there and a new feature. And then you can have up to 5 of these items kind of pinned across. So back to more of new changes here.
Yeah, Christopher, just
Yeah.
one thing to highlight there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pre 818, we had the ability to pin one dashboard to the homepage. Now we have the ability to pin 5, which it's sort of a big deal, right? I mean, everybody
Mhm.
has different use cases or different dashboards that they know and love. Maybe they're interested in VMs, right? Maybe they're providers and they're more interested in ESXi hosts. So now we have the ability to pin 5 total, including, or sorry, in addition to Overview and Launchpad. So
Mhm.
kind of a browser tabbed viewing experience. So it's gotten quite nice.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that. Yeah, that is that's because if you ever had used it, like, yeah, I've been using that, but have you? Right. So that's a really powerful new feature that the new 818 feature and functionality. We've got some new visualization changes. So time for timestamp transformation is, have you ever been there like, oh, I'm looking for this information, I want a view that looks at stuff not relative to a period of blah blah blah, but I'd rather have it relative to a timestamp value I happen to find or something like that. Now that's a piece added in there. If you said, I thought that's always been there, you're going to say that about a lot. I'm gonna bring up, say, I thought that functionality was always in there, and the answer is no, it's absolutely new functionality. Um, Another new thing we have here is ancestors and descendants property. And what's really cool about that is I'm going to let Brock talk while I go pull up Brock's blog around multi-object views or operations.
Yeah. So this feature, I love. It didn't get a ton of attention. It's not on the marquee. It is in the release notes. But what it allows you to do is, views previously, you have to pick an object type, be it a VM or a host or a cluster or whatever it might be. And then you'll choose metrics and properties to create your view. Well, what this allows us to do is select multiple object types. So say, for example, your view is based on VMs. You have a list of VMs and how they're performing, maybe some metadata, things like
Like this
that.
VM details V10, you Brock?
Exactly. Yeah. So now you can also list the host that VM is on, the name of the host, how many CPUs it has, maybe how
Hmm.
many cores it has, how hot the host might be running, the cluster it's in, et cetera, et cetera. So if you've done this before, you probably use supermetrics to assign parent or child objects or properties to the source object type. In this case, we no longer have to do that. Of course, still can if you want, but now we have the ability to do it in views. This is a big deal. I use this all the time. I no longer have to create supermetrics for them. It's easy, it's clean, small feature, but really, really valuable.
Well, and I'll even highlight, it's so powerful that this is all I have in my slide to say ancestors and descendants, new widget changes. That's what it's showing. Whereas Brock's blog, again, available in the resources tab, as well as everything you just shared, and this dashboard. Is this VM details V10 dashboard something they can download off of any of the repositories or about your
I don't know
blog or
if that
something?
one is.
Mhm.
If it's not, I can put it up in the GitHub repo if you'd like, though. So go to my blog, go to the GitHub repos. There's a bunch of content there. Feel free to download any of it. I'll upload this one, Christopher.
Absolutely, your blog being brockpeterson.com. All right, back to some of the other stuff here. Brock is not a sponsor. some other new visualization change, object search and inventory. This is, I know. Wait, you're telling me we haven't been able to search for objects in the inventory pane? Well, technically we didn't have the inventory pane, but yes, so you cannot search within the vCenter, meaning you actually have to go down into the sub point of it. I don't have that as one of my things I was going to have here, but if I were to, I could go right there and suddenly I've got this little search bar here. So if I knew I were looking for stuff under NSH, for example, I could do that and it's going to go and find NSH in case. So if I was looking for Linux, for example, I'll do that as a, if I were to spell Linux correctly, let me try that again. Let me clear that, go here to my little search bar. Am I doing it wrong? I feel like I'm doing it wrong. Yeah, because
Yeah, it just kind of depends on the inventory tree you're in, Christopher. But
yeah,
again, it's a really small feature. But if you're searching for a VM, for example, and there are hundreds or thousands on you're in a data center there, Christopher, that doesn't have a
yeah,
ton of
yeah.
stuff.
Thank you for that.
So, if you're searching for a VM and you have dozens or hundreds or whatnot, this search is a big deal. This same search is also available when you're creating views. For example, if you're using the object list, right, and there's pages and pages and pages of object types, or at least objects, you can now search for them. So minor, but a lot of value.
Absolutely, and maybe something you thought we had, but we did not. Let's see. Object search and dashboard widgets. Okay, that's my favorite one. And the reason I say it's my favorite one is how many times have you doom scrolled? Hey, I'm looking for virtual machine. All right. Scroll. Oh, nope, you're in Tenzu now, right? Right. So you're scroll now, like, you know what? I'm looking for you got virtual machine, virtual center, blah, blah, blah. Hey, at least I make it much easier. In this case, I've had a lot of Azure stuff. But being able to search in there eliminates a lot of that doom scrolling like we're on the Price is Right. Oh, if you guys do happen to have any questions, don't hesitate to drop them in the Q&A as well as the chat as well. All right, so filter by alert. Okay, that is you're saying like when you tell me we didn't have filter by alert, we didn't have filter by alert definition. We had filter by alert type. Hey, show me these different ones, right? But now we've got filter by alert definition, which is huge because otherwise I'd have to get a sense of the type of alerts I would typically be looking for of this and that. Sam did raise their hand. You guys tackled that as I move along more. This is the subtlest, smallest piece of all just these reporting enhancements and reporting changes, right? You can add a custom image, you can add a table of contents, you can add a footer. There's not much that's been added to reporting, but what I like about that is the investment in reporting is just it's an underpinnings of the future of changes that may be coming into reporting, which is super exciting to me because the alternative is if I don't get the data I want out of my report that I can export as a PDF or CSV, what am I doing? I'm dumping this thing off to a separate tool, or I'm using BI tools or something along those lines. So we're starting to make those extra investments just in 8.18 alone to make reporting better. And I look forward to a future of even better and stronger reporting. So this is super exciting. All right, this is one of those, you take a note of this, you start doing this immediately if you didn't necessarily notice this new capability, right? So there's right sizing rationale, custom metrics, guided risk configuration, which we'll go into. But the real magic happens to be here in the right sizing rationale. This is, you guys remember the day, right? Because we've all been using operations for a billion years or not. It used to be VROPS would tell you to right size this virtual machine. You should add 2 extra CPU or you should reduce X number of memory or what have you. And then you would say, why? And then VROPS would say, trust me, I know what I'm doing. And to be fair, as someone who managed millions of virtual machines, I trusted it, right? I stopped challenging it. But I still wanted to know without having to go pull up a bunch of metrics by hand and so on and so forth. So fast forward to the present. Now, this new capability, which I'm super excited about. Hey, I've got some oversized VMs. Let me go grab this one, for example, right? Oh my Lord, am I having difficulty scrolling on this part? There it is. All right, I'm going to sort by the highest number of recommended CPU reduction, just because that's something I would typically do, which means I've got to do it twice. But it's going to tell me, hey, I should reduce this particular VM by 16 CPU, this management, blah, blah, blah. And normally we know that 32 going to 16 probably means it needs to go fewer, at which point we would click the blue part, open up the virtual machine, pull up various metrics, demand, megahertz, etc. But in this case, now we've got this little, greater than symbol that turns into a caret, and it's going to tell me, hey, you should do this. This is what your history has been looking for this workload like. Hey, what's it look like in the last 3 months? Hey, this is how it's been operating and functioning. So I can say this thing's been running at its peak of about one gigahertz, right? 1,183 megahertz. I probably don't need 32 CPU. I probably don't even need the recommended 16, but VRAPS only does things in 50% chunklets. So I could look at this and saying, hey, I recommend you do this action, and I can drive it back to its real functional value. Just like undersized VMs, I'll find something that needs some extra CPU, let that thing parse for a moment, to go pull it up. And this is something that you can just do yourself, which is what's really nice about it. Hey, over the last period of time, over the last month, even over the last week, this thing's been spiking up higher. It's recommending I increase this thing by 2 CPU. And, it provides that justification. That justification being to maintain a green state in the time remaining threshold set in the policy plus 30 days, it's recommended to increase the risk level based upon this policy set at this conservative level with peak focus disabled. And if you're like, what does any of that mean? You could just go click that policy, which we're not going to right now, but you can click that policy and it gets into the scope of where we can go and change these things. I want it to be conservative level X. I want peak focus to be enabled, and still it doesn't change, but it lets you do all of that with a single click rather than open up the thing, go search for a bunch of stuff that you happen to know about. So that's a really, really powerful piece that makes right sizing even better than it ever has been. All right, let's roll to custom metrics. Very cool and very powerful. What's cool about that is you can now have custom metrics for memory, CPU, and disk. So if you happen to have some that deviates from the default standard that happens to be out there, now you've got some custom stuff you can set for it, along with the guided risk configurations and that peak focus. So that example, rather than have to go into the policy itself directly, we could have clicked just that WM policy when it brought us right into this exact view here, where we can go and tweak those things or make adjustments or so on and so forth. So it provides those things so you can control things on a policy by policy basis, or even a virtual machine by virtual machine basis to make, a lot of the things you want to accomplish very quick and easy. Cost management has changed a little bit. It's gotten better in some ways, and it's also still as really cool and powerful as it was. So if you go, cost overview, if you didn't know about this, cost overview, it has a series of different cost dashboards. If you've gone the route that I would often do in the past is I would open up operations, dashboards, and I would search the word cost. And I'd see my showback VM cost, I show back pod cost. I wouldn't see chargeback VM price because it doesn't have the word cost in it. I wouldn't see base rate or data. No, I would see all these rest of the words have the word cost in them, but I wouldn't see the ones that don't have the word cost in them. So it's like hardware deprecation and such, So it's a nice way, and there's more. I can scroll down and there'll be more dashboards. So this has always been a fun place to see some cost stuff. But in addition to that, we recently added per core license cost stuff. So if you happen to be using your cost drivers, configuration cost drivers, where you actually specify what your your cost for your assets and such in the environment are, rather than having to I've got to do weird math because I bought all my stuff in a per CPU basis, or because that's the only way we supported in 8.17 and prior. Now you can actually enter it. Now I'm in a per course subscription model or what have you. Now I can actually enter my stuff and get an accurate costing model from VMware licensing or VMware per core licensing such. So that's a really nice little addition that was put in there. As a project cost management, and there's just a new showback dashboard, new chargeback dashboard, and cost metrics for automation. There's a cost metrics for automation projects, so both for projects and deployments. So there's just so much extra stuff that's been integrated in, tying all the pieces of the puzzle together. Cost insights for business apps, just more and more that's under the covers. 375 plus, right? Cost analysis on a monthly basis. I actually really love this view because if you've got your data in there, or if you left it as static data, how it happened to be, it's a real easy way to say, hey, back in this month in March was this amount. right? Whereas in April, it was this amount. In February, because that cluster apparently didn't exist in February, but these ones happen to be like growing. So was that vSAN cluster? vSAN cluster was this size, and then it was around the same size that next month that if I were hovering over it would show me stuff. But then the subsequent month got much bigger, and you can start to see what changed, what happened in there if our the cost of these assets or how we're running these operations have increased. And this is kind of an old nod to our old Cloud Health product done from the public cloud visibility standpoint, but this is for your private cloud, on-premises infrastructure. Unified single sign-on. So this is a huge thing. This has nothing to do with operations per se, because this is all about vCenter. But you'll note, I mean, we've got more external providers than we had before. So if you're still running like 80U2, non 80U3 or higher, if you're still running 7X or older vCenters, you don't necessarily have any of those providers that give you ping fed or such like that. Again, not an operations thing, but new functionality, because we released a lot of stuff in this series of releases that have come out in the past 6 months to a year or so. So this is definitely one to look at, especially if you're just, we're just doing stuff as base SSO because we didn't have ping fed support or something along those other lines. Scale, this is huge. Okay. This is the new scale and performance thing. So if you're running 817 earlier, most of you are running 818, we literally doubled the amount of we doubled everything. We doubled everything. So this, I always like to have this as a side-by-side. This is 817 and prior. Say, hey, extra large could support 50,000 objects. Now extra large supports 100,000 objects. Hey, it supported 10 million metrics. Now it supported 20 million metrics. But the same is true across every single element of it. So if you're doing a small, so what's cool about that is, hey, today I'm medium. Well, let me find a better example. Today I'm running large. Today I'm running large because I need to support those 22,000 metrics or 22,000 objects. And you upgrade to 818. Wow, I can actually downgrade to a medium over here, still support everything I have in my other footprint as large, but reduce the amount of resources I need in there. And that's super powerful. Cloud proxies don't change, so the amount of metrics that we're able to handle there stays the same, and that's fine because we still handle a lot of those. And I hope I didn't have a poll that you're all using cloud proxies, but it should have at least one cloud proxy or more deployed in your environment, even if you just have a small, like single site, because you'll want some of the other features that I'm going to cover here in a little bit to actually work.
Yeah, Christopher, one thing to
Yeah,
note there.
absolutely.
I think the scale out is really helpful in that some customers run federation, right, or aggregation, and they may have multiple operations clusters and then some federated instance above that, which works well, but it's it's more clusters, and we want fewer clusters. Same sort of thing for logs, right? And you may be forwarding logs between clusters or in kind of an HA or DR sort of scenario. What scale and performance doubling gives us is kind of the ability to maybe eliminate some of those federation requirements, right? So maybe you don't necessarily need a federated instance above two lower level operations instances based on the new number of objects and metrics that we support here. So I know that we kind of scaled this for a few of our massive customers. Because I
I mean,
know
but everything was literally 100% increase across each of them, right? So
yeah, yep, yeah,
everybody
exactly. So,
benefited at that
so,
point.
so if anyone on the call is running a federated instance with multiples below it, have a look at this, right? You might be able to clean that up a little bit and more efficiently run a single operations cluster.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at the maximum objects in a cluster, right? Because when you add up all the maximum nodes you can have, maximum objects in the old way was 528,000 objects. So if you've got that many virtual machines and other, 63 million metrics, doubled straight aboard, doubled. A million objects, so that itself, because you might have been federating because you were hitting maxes. So that's just doubled. I love it. And also your performance increased, and you don't have to have as many extra separate touch points, dividing up those panes of glass effectively. Some visualization usability changes. So So there are a number of new changes here. I'm going to swap over to the daily health check dashboard. Is that the vSphere daily check dashboard? So that's, oh, I love this particular thing. I'm going to grab a cluster. This one's reddish, so I'm going to grab that cluster. And you know how it is, right? When you want to look at information that doesn't populate by default, you click adjacent to the blue thing. So I click to the side of it, and suddenly I'm able to see all this information being exposed for that one particular cluster. So rather than having to open up a dozen dashboards, I've got the vSphere Daily Check dashboard to go and look at all this information, which is it's super cool. I'm able to. Whereas this one, that's not nearly as problematic. I suddenly have less things to look at. Hey, I don't have nearly as much contention. I don't have nearly as much issue. I don't have any snapshots. I've got no data of those things to relate to. So that makes it easy. Let's see. Moving on to um, that's a deeper view into that. There we go. This, oh my God, this is massive. For anybody who ran the SAS solution when there was Operation SAS, at that time we announced 20-second granularity, where we would provide visibility into certain metrics at 20-second, granular levels. And no one ever turned it on. I know almost, Brock, you know if anybody ever actually turned it on outside of a test? Do you know
Yeah,
anyone?
I mean, yeah,
Isn't it?
there were a couple, it was really good for troubleshooting experiences, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to track down some latency or IOPS spikes that potentially get lost
I mean, I
in the
used it in
5 minute.
VDI cases. Absolutely.
Yeah, yep, in the 5 minute polls, because I think it's important to note that, operations pulls data every 5 minutes. Well, that 5 minute data point is actually an average of the 20-second polls over that 5 minute interval,
Mm.
right? Because vCenter has the 20-second, so you have 15 data points for each interval, and then the data point represented in operations is actually the average of those. So it's
Mhm.
important to keep that in mind. And this 20-second granularity allows you to not miss any data. So
And what's nice about this is we turn it on for 13 metrics, right? 9 for VMs, 4 for guests. These are the ones, right? It provides you, and then that data gets fed into a number of new dashboards, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Um, and if you're like, "What? How do I go turn it on and turn it off?" You go in your policy. It's right there. I mean, they're real easy ones to go. Just search for peak. That's the way I kind of do it. Is search for peak, and this one's showing me the ones I have within the virtual machine. But what I love about this is we've got some new dashboards. So we're going to pop over to some of these live knock dashboards. They are super cool. So there's 4 different ones we have here. This is the live cluster, live vSphere cluster performance dashboard. And it is showing my clusters, right? Hey, which, you know what? Red? Red's not good, right? So I go down here at the bottom. I've got some things that will fill out the moment I go and click some of these things. But these ones are, so for this one, vSphere cluster performance, it's broken up in CPU ready, memory contention, disk latency, and transmit packets dropped. So I look at this and say, you know what? I don't have a memory contention or a transmit packet dropped problem per se, right? Because they're perfectly green. I've got some CPU ready disk latency issues. I've got CPU VM usage. This looks like the stock market, some days, right? So, whereas this one looks like the stock market some days as well. So I can just as easily, I'll go grab one of those. I go and I click it, right? So that way it selects it. And I scroll down, I've got that information so I can start to dig a little deeper into that thing. And if I liked it enough to say, you know what, I want to actually look at stuff around this, I can just go click that. It'll take me right to the object, and then I'm troubleshooting. I'm looking at stuff at the object level, and I can troubleshoot it, through the troubleshooting workbench. Whereas the live vSphere cluster utilization dashboard, and all of these are things you can find by searching the word live or live, depending upon which way you want to say that word, right? You'll be able to find it in there. I will say if you don't find these when they were added, but they may not have it shared to everybody. So that's something that you'll want to be aware of in the event that you don't find them. Just let one of us know. Say, I can't, I'm running 818 and I can't find any of my live knock dashboards under the Network Operations Center. So
yeah,
they're,
that's an
yeah,
important point, Christopher. Not to glaze over that, because
no, that's important.
sometimes some of these operations dashboards are intended for admins only. There's a couple of them that I hunted down a while back that had to be shared out. So if you're looking for maybe operations health or logs health or some of those things, Potentially they haven't been shared. So as you know, as an operations user, when you create a dashboard, only you can see it until it's been shared. So as a best practice, whenever you create them, go ahead and share it with whoever that group is. I generally tend to just share with the everyone group so everyone can see it, kind of I don't know, a Chmod 777, if you will. But the more dashboards you have out there, the better. Brian did actually have a question asking about dashboards and making them available to the public. So there's a couple places you can get those. We used to have what we called the VMware Code site. And Christopher, you're probably going to share this at the end, but there's a new Broadcom developer portal, I think it's called, where we share content now. And I also share all of my dashboards on my GitHub repo. So Brian, I'll respond with that URL as well.
And I also share most of these things in my newsletter. If you guys are not receiving my newsletter, easy way is to just subscribe on LinkedIn, and someone will drop that in the chat here in a bit, because all my browsers are consumed by the demo parts of it. But either way, I'll often go and share and then reiterate these things on subsequent months. You can always go back and look at older ones. So this is the live vSphere cluster utilization. So the last one we were looking at was around cluster performance. Now we're looking at cluster utilization, right? And it's giving me a good sense of all those things. So I can say VM memory consumed. Yeah, we're good on memory. Everything is good on memory, right? Every single piece that we happen to have in here is good on memory. CPU is a dumpster fire, right? So you be like, you know what? I think maybe I have an issue that I need to resolve, right? And then you'll be able to just as easily go and take a look at, let's maybe grab that one that's ballooning memory. That one is now, just because everything was green doesn't stop there from being some problems with compressed memory or ballooning, right? But we do definitely show some CPU issues we may be having. The next one here, it's one of my favorite ones, the vSphere heavy hitter VM one, because that way it lets me know who are my heavy hitters. You know what? Nobody is a heavy hitter on network, so we're cool there, right? From this standpoint, is anybody a heavy hitter on CPU? No, actually, we're doing decent. How about in distro? Like, we got some issues. And disk IOPS, like, yeah, I've got some issues on a lot of VMs, right? Because it's heavy hitter VM. I've got a number of VMs that are having some disk related problems. Is it my VM or is it the underlying storage itself? That's where you start to dig a little deeper into, looking at this information in a different way. And the last of these ones, the live vSphere VM changes, right? To say, hey, show me, what are my object changes in inventory? What are some of these things? Change location, change in state. And this one I don't actually have to click anything because it just shows all that data easily. But it shows me that data easily right here. And if I ever want to, like, that's the last 7 days, but what's been going on for like the last day? I can easily change to that view and start to get that information as well as custom and dig through it a little bit. So back to the presentation itself. There we go. We killed off 124 alerts. Like, we deprecated 59 of them, which they're now called dep, which I'll show you when we get to that part here in a little bit. But 4 new dashboards, 11 updated dashboards, 17 deprecated dashboards, 58 new or updated views. We deprecated 3 views. So if you really love those views, you can always undeprecate them by, cloning them off to a new view that doesn't get lost. 20 new alerts, 65 deprecated alerts, 128 new or updated symptoms, and 18 new recommendations. This is it's just massive. Just all these things we happen to add in there, along with some of these things that are using that 20-second data than the other ones. So 20 new alerts, this kind of gives you a, hey, 20 new alerts that are added in here. Some of these alerts are things that we like, oh, I wish there was an alert on that. Oh, and now there is, right? Deprecated alerts. There's a lot of deprecated alerts. And more deprecated alerts, which kind of brings us to, if you never went into configurations, so I'll kind of do it this way, and then alert definitions, you would see, wow, there's all these alerts. So in my case, I've got 1,504 alerts. Total that happen to be in here. It's not to say that they're all active. It's just to say that there's a total of 1,504 alerts that you can make your own. You can modify. You can go and enable or disable. And that's where I can just as easily, hey, here's the 88. Wow, 88 deprecated alerts that happen to be inside this list here. So if I happen to really like these ones in particular, I want to, bring that one back to life. I love application efficiency is degraded. Let me clone that and make it my own. So that way it won't be deprecated or like removed in the future, something along those lines. Let's see what else we have here. Some new updated dashboards. So there's new dashboards. This one we kind of talked about, right? Those live vSphere VM changes, the vSphere daily check, vSphere performance profiling, vSphere VM inventory, and we've updated a number of these other dashboards. So we pop over to this view, same kind of place. It was well, in this case it was dashboards. I switched over to manage so that way you can kind of see all the dashboards, including ones that are not activated. So when they're not activated from viewing, they will not appear in the regular home view. So that's why I opened up right up and manage. So you can kind of see, wow, there's a number of other dashboards I didn't realize we didn't have exposed out here. Or I didn't realize it wasn't shared out with somebody. So you can actually go in there and then share those dashboards so other people can see them in the event that everyone's not logging in as admin, which I highly advise. Everyone shouldn't be logging in as admin. Some deprecated dashboards, so we went and we killed these ones. We made some other improvements to existing dashboards. So we went and we changed VM capacity and VM for performance. Like performance is now using 20-second peak instead of that 5-minute average that Brock talked about earlier, and other pieces of this information. You can always grab a screenshot of it or play it back on the recording because there's a lot, right? There's a lot that we have floating here. 58 new and updated views. And a few deprecated views. So what I like about that is we go to views, manage, just like we had before, and I'm able to see all these different ones that happen to be out there. But what did I deprecate? These ones. These ones I happen. Here, let me actually do it this way. Which ones did I deprecate? These ones. There we go. Because sometimes things have the word dep in their name, like Johnny Depp. Some new and updated symptom definitions, and that is huge. So if you don't know the anatomy of an alert, basically it operates on, you have a number of metrics that will trigger a symptom, like CPU runs high. Has high equal higher than 80%? That's a symptom. Then you'll have an alert that'll then trigger to say, hey, you have these things exceeding that amount. So there's 3 pages of new and updated symptom definitions, and that's same kind of place we went before, configurations, and then we went here to symptom definitions to say there's a lot of new symptoms. How many? In my case, 1,693. The more management packs you load, the more symptoms you'll have inside the environment. So you can definitely get more. 50 new recommendations, and that is, sorry, 18 new recommendations. This is slide 50 for me. That way, 18 new recommendations. So I've got 879 total recommendations. And what a recommendation is, when a metric triggers a symptom, which triggers an alert, often they'll say, hey, this thing occurred. Here's what we would recommend you do to resolve that particular thing. A power supply is not functioning. Investigate the power supply and determine it needs to be serviced, right? But it could also be, hey, this thing's running out of disk space because the snapshot overran. You should probably delete that snapshot or something along those lines. It gives you a lot of that instructional and guided visibility rather than how it used to be, right? This thing happened. Oh, why? Sounds like you're Googling that. We don't make you Google for everything or even a lot of things. So we've got some vSAN Max support, which is now called Converge something or other, or vSAN Max cluster. So there's been added support for that. That's a really nice piece that happens to be out there. We've added some expansion into our Tanzu Kubernetes stuff that I'm sure Brian will talk our ears off if Brian wants to chime in about any of this new functionality. And that if for anybody who does leverage any of Tanzu in their environment or any of the new VKS type of stuff, there may be a webinar in the future where we may discuss that as well. So it's discover supervisor clusters and feed all the information into operations. Just a lot of power that goes in there. Refined management packs. So we have had these management packs for a very long time, but we've also refined them. In particular, the Microsoft SQL, Oracle, MySQL, and Postgres. And what I like about these ones in particular is, so if you went inside the Microsoft SQL management pack and you click on content, you can do this for any management pack, but it gives you at a glance to say, wow, by installing this management pack, I get these 4 dashboards, Microsoft SQL drill down, I get a number of different views, I've got a number of alerts, right, and symptoms. I'm getting that right there from Microsoft SQL Server. I'm getting that kind of thing for Postgres. I'm getting that kind of thing for MySQL, right? I'm getting that kind of thing from Oracle. So if I install these management packs and then actually configure them to talk to those devices, Oracle, MySQL, etc., I'll be able to get this information right into operations. And that's super powerful. We've had that ability, but we've made that ability even better, better and deeper functionality, deeper visibility. The network devices management pack, which if you read my February newsletter, I was praising, hey, install the network devices management pack, because that's a very nice one that you can take advantage of and leverage. Let's see here. There's a new NSX Advanced Load Balancer Management Pack that will provide deeper visibility into NSX Advanced Load Management. These are content packs. So if you're using operations for logs, now we've got the integration with TKGS. We've got the integration for HGX where we're pulling that information in. And that's just some of the new ones from a log standpoint. So simplified diagnostics. Some of you may have seen this. I'm doing a time check on me. Wow, okay. Good thing I did my time check. There are some new changes here inside VCF Diagnostics, which you may remember as Skyline. So we've got the new VCF Diagnostics experience, right? Where it's got all this data and findings, and this is great. I mean, it's a slide that changes stuff as I move around, but what I like more is this right here is to say, oh, just because I was going to show before, the network devices management pack also has visibility into generic devices, Cisco, HP, Lenovo, and such like that. Anything that's not those falls into generic devices. So diagnostics. This is that Skyline functionality plus a little bit. So if I've got like some overall findings, hey, I've got this thing. It's a critical event. Oh, what is this particular one? Oh, it's critical. It's a security advisory. It's associated. It's described, blah, 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 these things. It affects 13 objects. Oh, man. 13 objects? Which ones? These 13. Oh, what should I do? You should do this. What I love about that is that tied all those pieces. It's describing a problem. Who does this affect? What do I do? What's my recommendation? I click this link and it takes me right to the thing, and I can go download this thing or what have you. I go back to diagnostics. Hey, do I have any security advisories? And actually, in this case, those happen to be the same thing. Sometimes a finding doesn't have to be a security advisory. It can be a configuration thing. In my case, it all happens to be security problems. Same type of thing from that certificates, and I may be jumping the gun on this a little bit, but that's okay. But I've got all these things, so I'm able to look at the health and when's that certificate going to expire? What's it related to? Who issued that? What the appliances I associate with? These ones are NSX. This one's operations. That one's logs. That's vCenter. I have all that stuff right there, just easily at a glance, right? So moving on to this part here, if there's ever a slide to take a screenshot of, this is the one. Because you may find that diagnostics, the Skyline diagnostic functionality, is working in your environment. It may have information, but it may not have all of the information. That's where having this, hey, I need to activate and configure these things. I want to go, if I don't have logs configured, I want to set up logs, because some of the data it's going to get that provide you that deeper visibility, it's going to get from those pieces. And I got to integrate those things. So I'm a big fan of this prerequisite slide just for that reason, because it shows you what you need to do the thing effectively. This is huge. So the improved cloud security stuff. So yeah, new certificate visibility. I just talked a little bit about that. So the certificate discovery, if you have anything that's out of compliance. Audit events. I love this, because, hey, I want to audit access control for this particular thing. I can go and do that. Hey, who changed that thing inside of VROPS? I can go and take a look at that. So centralized license management, I can't demo this, and I have to use screenshots. As you can see, you see all these little X's. That's why I can't demo it. But what's nice about this is now we have all the license management inside of here. I'm showing you all the information at a glance, so you can kind of tie it back. Who's that system related to? How's that thing configured? What's my capacity? What's my usage? What do these things look like from, a reporting type of thing? What do these things look like from a legacy standpoint? We're gonna get there. What do these things look like from a legacy legacy standpoint? So that's how, because I'll get that question, how do I go and I license my environment when I upgrade to 8.18 or something like that? You do it all inside of the license keys inside of the legacy licensing. So you kind of got a lot of stuff there. Config drift. So there's two elements to this. There is a requirements pane that we'll get to shortly. The config drift is I have a defined configuration I want you to stay within. And if you happen to deviate for SMTP or syslog or network or access, any of these things, I want to be able to be notified of that thing. And then you'll be able to be notified when things happen to deviate from your standard configuration. What do I need to do to configure that? These are your prerequisites, right? You need to use a cloud proxy. And I mentioned that before. If you're not running cloud proxy, run one. You need to be vCenter 803 and later. So if you're doing this on 7 or 8, blah, 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 you're not necessarily going to get it. And admin role and config drift, blah, blah, blah. So these are kind of key pieces that happen to be there. Compliance packs. I love this because we've updated and upgraded some of these things. So now I've got some new DISO ones and some new SYS ones and the CSA that's tied to the CCM4. Some really nice pieces that happen to be in here. Some of you may have never played with compliance packs in here. So here's a perfect example of it is if I go inside of compliance, in this case, I'm looking at my vCenter. I've got a number of these compliance packs loaded, right? vSphere and blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to go click on that one. It's going to show me this is the stuff that's out of compliance, right? Virtual machine is violating, blah, blah, blah. I can go click this and it'll show me the thing. And if I click on one of these virtual machines, the text next to it, it'll show me which pieces I happen to be out of compliant for that one, right? In this case, it happens to be these 4. If I go back over to that same view I was in and I look at a different one, let's grab this one at the bottom. We're going to see, is it those same 4 or is it, more? In this case, it's just these 3. Hey, I fixed one, or they could be completely related, completely unrelated different ones. What's nice about that is it gives you that ease of going and fixing some of these things, or in some cases, going and disabling them. You know what? I never want to be notified about that particular thing. Let's go disable that function.
Hey, Christopher,
So,
Brian's hand is
Christopher.
up.
Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah, go
Brock.
for it.
Yeah, Christopher, I know you're a little pressed for time, and I'm glad you got here. Just kind of dispatches from the field for everybody out there. I don't know if anybody is if you're on the fence about operations, which in my humble opinion, operations is a no-brainer. But this to me is probably one of the most valuable things that we do. So there's a security configuration guide that we put out there. If you're sort of hounded by your security team with like your Tenable scans and your Rapid7 scans, this is a way for you to have the receipts and being able to respond in a more proactive way. And it isn't just our security standards. You've got HIPAA out there. If you look at the HIPAA compliance and whatnot. So and also, if you're currently running operations and you're not taking advantage of this, this will lead to not just a way for you to be able to be proactive about those security scans, but have a more overall proactively secure environment as a result of these standards. So this is one of my favorite features out of the whole thing. And I'll say one last thing about operations in general. To me, there's a lot of even with one single feature for people, I have a couple of customers who are doing capacity management in manually updated Excel spreadsheets. And they're on the fence about whether or not they're going to run operations. I'm like, dude, this is going to make your life way easier just in doing that. So I know I'm probably preaching to the choir, but this is one of those features, in my humble opinion, that is going to make your life a lot easier and make a lot less work for you in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On the Kubernetes piece, keep in mind that we're seeing a lot more integration of what is now called vSphere Kubernetes services. Ask your account team about a deep dive into VKS. It's worth revisiting as a feature, and you're going to see a lot more integration with that, which there already is, but they're going to see a lot more integration with that in operations.
And we may
from a
have
manageability in the long run.
Brian on to take us all on a deep dive in a future webinar.
Yeah, sounds great.
So what's
I'm all about it.
I'll highlight in this one really nice part about the compliance stuff is I've got a number of these ones that are not activated, right? And it says activate from repository. And if I click that, it takes me to the thing and I can actually go and activate that one directly. In this case, it actually is. But I can go and I lost where I happen to be. I mean, just put back that way. Anyway, but that we actually have made it to the final slide here, which is super powerful there. So this is not everything you can do in operations. I want to be clear. Let me stop sharing there. This is not everything you're able to do in operations. This is just the new stuff we announced in the last 6 months. Literally, this is only new things, many things of which have been in the box forever. So this is just more things that you're able to take advantage of and you're able to do. And, you know, Operations is super powerful and it continues to get even more powerful as we get into future versions. But I'm just talking about stuff that you're all able to take advantage of today and for the past 6 months. So if it's something you can always work with any of your specialists, your account teams to go a little deeper, do like a workshop on some of these components. But these are all things you're able to start taking advantage of at this moment. So I'm going to go through, look and see if there's any other active questions and such like that. I'm going to go and move you guys over this screen so that way I'm not like staring up into the ether. I hope this was good. I hope this is really good. We've got a few minutes, so if you guys have other questions, want to make sure that we give you the opportunity to ask them. Drop your
Hey,
questions in the chat or the Q&A.
yeah. Hey, Christopher, we had one question. Forgive me. Let me look through the list here. Okay. Sam asked about how to delete alerts because there's so many of them. Can you bring operations back up and we can show them how to do it?
I'm
So
gonna do all the things
there's,
unless you want to
yeah,
share.
I'm not positioned to do
That's
that right
okay.
now.
That's why I said if you want to. All right,
Yeah.
sharing my desktop. There we are. Where do you want me to
Yeah,
go?
so just go to Operations Blade on the left and then alerts. So
Absolutely.
Sam, this is how you do it, and you can do it by group. So just for example, just select that top. Yep. So you don't need to expand it. So click kind of adjacently next to it, because
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
couple ways you can delete alerts or cancel them in mass, and you do it by selecting. Yep, right there. For example, to the right.
Yeah. Just
Group
share.
by, yeah, you should be able, there you go. And
Yes,
now go
thank
to
you. Yeah, for the
actions.
actions. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then go to cancel. So you'll want to cancel them, which will basically render all of those alerts inactive, right? So if you go to the status, it'll show as inactive. You can do it, Christopher. It's just
Yeah.
my lab. And then if you go back, and you'll have to do it again for delete. Yep. So go ahead and select like right next to copy of, and then actions, delete. That deletes all of those alerts. So what is it, 4,300 of those alerts get deleted.
4,346. Yes, indeed. You want me to cancel? You want
Yeah.
to delete this one?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
They'll come back.
It's your environment, so I don't want to make changes
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a
without your
couple of
approval.
comments. No, you're all good. So, James just mentioned it's better than doing 10 at a time. Yep. I did 10 at a time for like, a minute, and I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this. So, I kind of stumbled on that, but that's how you do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. And if you're just to throw out kind of give me, if you're not leveraging Automation Central today, you should be using Automation Central to delete old power.vms, delete old snapshots, which is not that's the thing, it's not new, right? This has been, was it 4 years old at this point? This was 8.4, so we've released 1,000 versions since then. So this is definitely Automation Central should become your friend if you're not leveraging at the moment. Other questions? We've got a few last minutes. I want to make sure that you guys get a chance to ask any of these questions live versus having to go to the YouTube chat in order to say, hey, what was that? You guys have been having great questions, though, that have been popping up in the Q&A, though. I definitely appreciate that. Yeah, I hope this was good. I had a good time. I've shared the content from this session for some time because 8.18 was such a massive. It seemed like it was a dot release from 8.17 to 8.18, but with the interface change and 375 plus changes, it was huge. I'm particularly a massive fan of everything that happens to be at its disposal, and I hope you guys are able to take advantage of that. It's reason enough alone just to go to 8.18, just so you can start taking advantage of just that guided explanation as to why, right sizing wants to be done or anything. Thank you, James. I'm just responding to this, some of the stuff in the chat there. All right. Well, with that, then I'm going to end the recording part. Stop recording.